For more than 80 years, the Lilly Endowment has been working to carry out its mission to support and encourage Christian communities in America through research and grants. This grant to the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America is part of a national initiative to address increasing financial challenges that have hindered pastoral leaders across all denominations from flourishing in their calls to serve God's people. I co-direct the coordination program for these grants, and we've learned from the research done by this Greek Orthodox grant and 48 other grants that the situation is actually more problematic than we thought. Priests and pastors do not tend to complain or ask for help. They and their families suffer in embarrassed silence. The Clergy Initiative, like grant initiatives in other denominations, seeks to break the silence, equip clergy and lay leaders to work together, and facilitate greater health for priests and their families, for the parishes they serve, and for the community at large. Thank you for being part of this faithful work. When parish councils understand the challenges and take action, it ensures a healthy priest and his family, and in turn creates what we all want, a healthy parish doing the work of the Lord.
Whether this is your first time as a parish council member or if you have served before, we believe this time together will give you a fresh vision of your role in the health of your parish. We'll begin with a brief video overview of the ministry of the parish priest and some of the unique challenges faced by him and his family. We'll touch on some facts and figures from several recent studies, and you'll find more detailed information in the handout you received and online. And since we're not just dealing with abstract facts and figures, we'll try to personalize this data, hearing from several individuals whose personal experiences or in-depth studies validate this information and make the data more understandable. Then we'll pause the video presentation so you can take some time to discuss what you've seen and identify how these issues apply to your parish. After that, we'll come back to the video for some ways you can help ensure the physical and emotional health of your priest and his family. So, let's begin with a basic question. What is a priest?
The priest has a myriad of roles, primarily to teach, to lead the worship services, to administer the sacraments, to be comforting, loving, compassionate, understanding, merciful, and accepting of all people. And the priest has a great responsibility as a shepherd of his flock. The shepherd leads because he loves his flock and the flock loves him. And the main role for the priest is to lead the flock to come to their full potential in their grace and growth of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ in our faith.
Leading in worship, proclaiming the gospel, celebrating the Eucharist. These are the most visible parts of your priest's ministry. What most members of the parish don't see are the countless hours invested in the lives of individual members of the parish. Visiting the sick, bringing reconciliation to fractured relationships, offering wise counsel, teaching the truths of our faith, responding to the late-night phone calls. Over time, these begin to take an emotional and physical toll on the priest and his family, taking little pleasure in ordinary things, unnatural sleep patterns, lacking energy, eating disorders, feelings of failure, sadness, anxiety, taking little or no time off for personal and family renewal.
So there are two ways of thinking about post-traumatic stress symptoms. One way to think about them is the individual manifestation of them in terms of symptoms. So things like disrupted sleep, depression, anxiety, changed appetite, and a hallmark symptom, I'm just going to call it avoidance. Avoiding anything that is going to trigger those emotions that are so painful to begin with. So if there are stressful symptoms within the parish, the priest and the presbytera are going to tend to pull back and pull away because they are already experiencing clinical levels of distress. The risk is they're going to take shortcuts to try to cool off the fires of the dysregulation. And we're all familiar with what those shortcuts are. They're more compulsive behaviors, substances, binge watching television so that hours and hours pass by, gambling, shopping, eating. All these things affect our inner chemistry in a way that give us a short-term sense of relief, but there's a rebound effect, and that rebound then requires a greater dose of the shortcut.
There is a great deal of studying and knowledge that must be learned when a seminarian. New Testament, Old Testament, ecclesiastical history, chanting, preaching, liturgics, Greek, and practical ministries such as youth and adult ministry, just to name a few. And it could take up to 5 years of intense studying to achieve a Master's of Divinity. The average seminarian's debt upon graduation at Holy Cross Greek Orthodox School of Theology is about $50,000. So the reality is that when a priest is first assigned to a parish, he may well be under significant financial stress. Sadly, for many priests, these financial stresses do not go away. Living in high cost of living areas, inadequate savings, and little or no retirement preparation, often living paycheck to paycheck, frequently depending on a second income to make ends meet.
There's no question that finances is a problem for a good percentage of the folks that I see. There are a lot of factors that relate to that, particularly if a clergy family has 4 or 5 children and the presbytera is a stay-home homeschooler and they depend on one income. That's a real stress. But one of the things that is not noticed when you look at the facts and figures is what happens to the body, the emotions, and the family because of the stress. You know, when you figure that a depressed man at 45 years old has a 100% greater chance of a heart attack, even though he's in perfect health. Think what happens when you have financial stress. Your body is under assault, and this is an invisible thing that won't be noticed because you have hardworking people who realize as an Orthodox, okay, I'm going to suffer for Christ. And so they can't pay their bills, and this eats at them. So I have seen this a number of times, and it's one of many stresses for one of the vocations that is such a generalist in one way, that you're called in so many directions, that in itself is both incredibly meaningful but also stressful.
Living in a fishbowl, clergy families often feel on display. The priest's home is expected to be a model micro-church where members live exemplary Christian lives. But as in the liturgy, when the priest turns to the parish and asks forgiveness, are laity actually welcoming and forgiving of the clergy and his family in daily life? Are they forgiven for being merely human?
In the clergy home, we have a husband and a father who has to navigate a lot of difficult pastoral issues on a daily basis. Many things that he cannot share, either with his wife, who is his closest human relationship, or his family. And we also have to navigate the reality that many in the world that we live in today are also navigating, but that is that work is 24/7 at our husband's fingertips. And the pastoral needs are always there and they never go away. So how do we create this safe haven and space in our homes for our husbands and our fathers, and continue to nurture our marriage and our family lives? All of the research shows that a healthy marriage and a healthy family life translates into healthy ministry. If a priest is not personally healthy and healthy in the closest relationships that he is not going to have a healthy, whole, vital ministry.
Younger clergy families, not far removed from the camaraderie of seminary life, may have other worries.
I'd say in our home, that phone never stops ringing. The emails never stop buzzing on the phone. There's always something to respond to. And so really the priest is trying to be all things to all people. And how does that affect the family? Well, he may not be there for some of the most important monumental moments in our lives. We have a son who plays travel soccer. I'm running him down to Miami and back on Saturdays. Father has weddings, he has baptisms. He's often unable to be there cheering him along. His tryouts this week fell during Holy Week, a very difficult and trying time to maneuver back and forth. And you know, as much support as George wanted from his dad during this very, very important milestone moments in his life, he wasn't there. And it's really hard. It's really hard.
What exactly does wellness look like in the life of your priest, in the vitality of your parish? And what role do you play as a member of your parish council?
Because the priest is not likely to be forthcoming if he doesn't feel safe and cared for. The most important thing is for him to know this so that the parish council is someone he can trust. And in that case, you can ask how he is, because when he starts not being able to sleep and feels the pressure of finances and he can't talk about it with anybody, and because he's keeping boundaries with everyone and doesn't let him know his private life, his pain may be invisible. So you can ask, but only if you're showing real love. Because if he can't trust you to open up at that level, then what you can do is offer him the chance to have that sabbatical, to take a week off and to care for himself or his family. This shows him that you're serious about him. But if you aren't open to that, or you don't make provisions for this, or you can't understand why that would be needed, then you're not going to find out if he's in trouble until it's too late and something has happened because his voice went unheard so long, his cry.
In just a moment, we'll pause the video and give you an opportunity to process the information we've presented and talk about what this means for your parish. We close with this final thought.
The priest is a human being. He has weaknesses, he has flaws, he has strengths. And one of the things that I would encourage people is to love him with who he is, not with who he is not. You know, sometimes we thrust these unhealthy expectations on our priests that they cannot be filled, that they can't live up to. And so meet them where they're at, because they feel called to serve God's churches. And when we keep putting these unhealthy expectations on them, we're not only creating an unhealthy relationship with that priest, but we're putting extraordinary pressure on that priest to be something that God didn't create him to be. God gave every priest a unique gift. We're not all great orators. We're not all great liturgists. We all don't have the same exact voice. But one thing that we do have is we share the Eucharist, the body and blood of Christ, and the calling that called us to serve at that holy altar table. And so love them. Look for ways to help and assist them. When he wins, we all win.